Hey everyone, welcome to the ARCHLOGBOOK CHATS. Today I have Jacek. He is a Melbourne-based design technology specialist, registered architect with almost a decade of professional experience. He works on computational design and building envelope development involving an A to Z coordination process and documentation. He graduated from the Poznań University of Technology, Poland, and gained initial experience in Barcelona, Beirut, and Shanghai. He previously worked at a Bates Smart Melbourne office, and currently works at Cox Architecture, leading significant and large-scale projects. He's also developing a design portfolio management platform called tuneup.org, aiming to help clients find the right designers through the contents of their work. Without further ado, let's say hi to Jacek. Hi, how are you?
Hi everyone, hi Gabriel.
So today is the first time we ever meeting each other. It's quite interesting to talk to many different architects around the world, and I'm quite excited to talk to him today. So today we're talking about a few different topics. Firstly, we'll be talking about his experiences and his journey in architecture. Secondly, he's currently involved in a lot of projects in Melbourne, so he'll be sharing a little bit about that. And then after that, we'll be talking about design portfolios, and especially for those graduates and maybe mid-career architects who are considering to change careers, and how his platform called TuneUp is trying to solve the problem of transparency and also making opportunities more widely available and to connect, from connect portfolios to the right companies who are hiring. Yeah. So maybe you just start a little bit with your own journey. Yeah. So how do you start and maybe where you are right now?
Again, thank you for inviting me, Gabriel. It's great to share my story. Happy to do that. Well, I come from Poland, Eastern Europe. It's part of European Union, so it was really great to study there because together with my group of friends, we could travel and see many different cities and countries. And as architectural students, we could see how cities are shaped, created, focusing on some beautiful spaces, or maybe the ones that were not so beautiful, and we could also learn from that. So I think, with internships, international internships, and traveling, I think this journey and discovery was with me since the beginning. And I literally finished my master's and defended my thesis in 2013, early September, and a couple of weeks later I had a plane to Shanghai, to China, to just continue learning and discovering my architectural skills and passion further. And why did I go to China? Why did I arrange that? Because, when I started university and studies, it was 2008, great financial crisis. And actually all this GFC was happening during the studies. And as you know, the architectural industry thrives in the, let's say, the economic upturn, and when the good times, the clients have a lot of money, they want to create beautiful, great developments. And then great financial crisis, everything was slowing down in Europe. There was not much work or exciting work, especially. And while China or Shanghai, Beijing, Shenzhen, Guangzhou, I could keep naming, but these cities were booming, right? And I think I was telling everyone when I arrived and I started working on the projects there, I always had this financial component in mind. I was thinking, okay, how to make it more cost efficient, how to really, select materials or just design the assemblies in a way that it's gonna be just a bit cheaper. It doesn't have to be expensive. How to achieve that goal? And my project leader was always saying, "Don't worry about money, Jacek or Jack, right? Don't worry about it. let's just make it great and good for the users and the clients." So first thing I'm coming there, don't think about money, just let's do something extraordinary. And that was totally surprising and something I didn't expect. Probably because you come from Singapore, right? You're based in Singapore, so I believe the mentality with your Marina-based sand, the world's most expensive project. I don't know if still, but it used to be, right? Like this mentality seems to be very aligned. So you know what I'm talking about. And 3 wonderful years passed. It was great to work mostly on front end projects because I think that's how being an expat, being an international in Shanghai works. You typically just work on creative part of architecture, this front end, those first phases, when you provide ideas and initial design, and then it's being taken over by by other companies who are providing those construction drawings or fabrication drawings, etc. Which means that in studios I was working, we were getting a lot of projects for an early stage, and we had a couple of weeks to put a design package, give it to the client. Sometimes it was a government client, so you needed to go through different levels of government review and presentations, but you could submit a package for one project, and while waiting for the feedback a couple of weeks, you could work on another one, right? And in that way, I started building my own personal portfolio very fast, because it didn't take me, 1 or 2 years on one project. I was working on like 12 or 14 in 1 year. So very interesting experience. And after that, though, I really wanted to go back to the roots. So become an well-rounded architect, working, through the conceptual stage up to town planning, detailed development, and tender packages and construction phase, and admin, and all of that. So I think a very exciting country, and always something on my bucket list, was Australia. And interestingly enough, Shanghai or China is actually halfway from Europe. It's like almost, I think it's around 10,000 kilometers, and it's another 10,000 kilometers from Shanghai to Melbourne. So at the time, I thought it's like very far from the country I grew up in, and it was actually only halfway to be in Melbourne. And in Melbourne, I had a tremendous experience. I was lucky enough to get to Bates Smart, one of the oldest studios in the world, extremely rewarded, established, amazing people, and like top quality projects. And I think the studio is all about quality and details and timelessness. So it was a great learning curve for me, right? I came there, actually I was an architect, but because you change the country, you almost start from scratch. So, and in Australia, if you're not registered, you cannot even call yourself architect. You are only architectural graduate. You are, graduate, let's say. And starting almost from scratch, I was just learning out my way, and but quickly I jumped on a couple of construction projects because of the computational design. And I learned computational design in China because I needed to react very quickly to clients' comments. So in order to adjust a design and not start from scratch and not manually model up, build everything. If you had a couple of scripts that you could just change parameters and massage to achieve maybe a refined result, or also ideate, and create 10 different ideas quickly. Grasshopper or parametric design in general was a way to go. So with these skills, actually, that's how I got to Australia. And when I was working on these construction projects, not with certain subtleties even, but it was a computational parametric design needed, Grasshopper to generate specific models and drawings for the subcontractors and consultants and everyone. I jumped into a very deep water, but I think I thrived in these projects. It was a members club, VRC at Bates Smart or Capital Grant, some skyscrapers. I think these were the building blocks of my experience. Also some luxury hotel in the Northern Territory. So after after all of that, I just wanted to pursue further and probably dive deeper into a bit more contemporary, let's say, approach to architecture. And the solution was the Cox Architecture, which is one of the biggest studios here in Australia across 5 or 6 cities. I don't know, like hundreds of designers, extremely collaborative, creative environment that I think through pandemic time and last couple of years, because I joined March 2020, this kind of technology-driven culture and mentality at Cox was only we capitalized on that, right? Like people really could design and collaborate with ease, and even though we were most of us just working from homes, we felt really like team. Implementing those agile working environment and styles from IT industry, I think at least in some extent. At Cox, I could say so much. I mean, we work on 130 Little Collins, boutique commercial tower, which has so many beautiful aspects of precast GRC and forms that are shaping this building. Or you have 308 exhibition that's currently very well in construction in the heart of the city. 2 towers with some parametric computational aluminium cladding, sky bridge on level 45, 6, just up to 100 meters above the sea level, which is everything is. We're at the coast here in Melbourne. I just keep thinking RLs or AHDs, which is like. This kind of absolute heights, because with complexity of projects and with the topography changing, sometimes it's really hard to have a reference of a ground floor or something, and especially if you think of different projects. And there is also another project we're doing. It's a construction in Docklands, a district, very modern, very new, renovated. Historic, with harbor, with yachts, with waterfronts, beautiful promenades. And this project, it's called Home Docklands. It's built to rent, 2 skyscrapers, 2 towers with the podium, beautifully enhancing the public space and really providing some human scale in a public realm with a well-articulated portions of podium, and then well-sculpted, elegant towers. But I think the most exciting projects, I think, in my career and at Cox was to participate, to be a member of a pretty big team of really best consultants, not only talking about architects at Cox or our joint venture UN Studio colleagues, but you had, all the big names of engineers, services structure, like everything, right? Like it was top-notch team working on so-called South Bank by Beulah, which is a green spine project you probably heard. It's 2 skyscrapers kind of twisting with vertical gardens. Again, human scale, which is interesting aspect. So last 10 years were pretty busy.
Yeah, it seems like you have a lot of different experiences, firstly in countries and typologies, and maybe branching into facade design, computational design. What was there anything that drove you, to try and explore different facets of architecture, or is it just happened to be the case and then they gave you the task to do it, and then, or was it a self-initiated thing?
Well, I think I went to architecture, not for money, because if I wanted to make a lot of money, I would probably become, somebody in finance, lawyer, or I don't know, like brain surgeon. So it was just this kind of creative need. I think this part of me that wanted to combine ideas with also a certain technical and mathematical thinking that I think I always had while I was, when I was a student since high school or earlier. Also the people skills, the soft skills, the communication skills. Just kind of a need to travel. I think architects and designers, we really, even sometimes visiting those expos or biennales or big events and see what's happening around the world. I think this industry really requires all of that. Is the full package, right? Like we need to know a little bit about everything. Of course, you can specialize, and that's great if you specialize and have some skills nobody else has. But typically, architects need to be good in many different things. And because the world is changing, because all the other how do you call it, a sister, or cousin industries, they all keep changing and evolving. I think we just need to keep learning all the time, like crazy. Read books, do courses, meet people, put yourself out there, work on different projects. So yeah, there's endless curiosity you need to have, and in that case I had. So I think all of that drove me to architecture, and while practicing architecture. The moment I found some tools to kind of connect data or get data to as parameters to drive forms, to explore design possibilities, or in that case with TuneArc, create design portfolios and then create tools that allows you to search through these portfolios, so to making portfolios data driven. So this kind of data analytics was another stepping stone, but that makes things basically alive, right? Because the moment you inject data and those parameters into your design workflows, things start moving. Right? They keep changing. And I think that's fascinating. The movement, the motion. Look what most people do in their free time. They watch movies, they watch shows. It's because this is something that's a kind of motion, right? So I think that's fascinating. And again, with TuneArc and portfolios, of course, we can talk about it later, but if you have a static PDF for portfolio or a website, again, it's like an island, right? It's just something you need to make a certain number of clicks to maybe learn how about it or find information. But if you really, again, inject parameters and data, you make this portfolio live, right? And maybe this portfolio actually feeds certain tools and algorithms that then provide the visual information to other users, or searching, sorting, filtering tools. So basically, yeah, I think data makes and use, first of all, generating this data, quality data, because that's another thing, right? It's so easy to just create something nowadays. But same, and I'm kind of speaking in parallel now, architecture or web development or databases, but it's so easy to create something, right? Give me 5 minutes, or you probably take 5 minutes, you will create a sketch, or you will post something online. But it's about creating a quality contents now, right? Which either you need more time, or you need a good workflow that will save you time and save your resources, so you can focus on other things. And then it's about extracting this data. And in architecture, also working on computational, generative, parametric projects is it's one thing to create a very well sculpted form, but then extracting this data for other consultants, for the client who needs those measurements and values in order to continue with their work, right? Because of some freeform shape model tells them nothing. Right, and they might actually take it and twist it their own way and change it, which you don't want. You want exactly that. So the moment you create it, but then you're able to extract it and just put it on a platter for other consultants. Input output. If you master that process, I think you're in control, or fascinating things happen. Things start moving. and movement is life.
Yeah, I think we're in a very fascinating era now, right? There's technology and there's data-driven design. So I also came from a background where in school, we are actually exposed to parametric design from the very beginning. And I'm
Yeah.
quite happy to say that skill in like programming, in coding, and how it translates to geometric form finding and also computational design, it
Yeah.
does help. It actually shapes the way I think also about architecture and also the practice
Yeah.
of architecture, right? And when we codify things, we make things very clear, like there's inputs and outputs, right? So
Yeah.
we can apply
Yeah.
to what you're saying, like portfolio management, like, it's not just only one static data, right? But it's also
Yeah.
different uh, dynamic data that keeps changing. You have new projects, you can actually host it on a website. So
Yeah.
this idea of technology being a driving force of the change in architecture practice is either a sink or swim situation where we architects have to adapt and learn, because it's going to be a new maybe a complementary way of like practicing architecture. It's not only the only way to practice architecture, but it complements the way we scope and also find correct solutions to design
Yeah.
problems.
Yeah. I heard about a very fascinating approach in one of the webinars workshops, I think last year, that we might, flip the whole model. I mean, I don't still yet know how it's going to happen and how it's going to impact the process of creating architecture, whether it's going to limit it or actually provide many more possibilities. But imagine instead of let's say us architects being the first ones in the process, that we get all the design briefs and again kind of sort of data, or we again from a design brief, sometimes 100 pages PDF full of text and some reference images, we try to make sense out of it and extract the key information, right, of that brief, and then translate it with a design and a three-dimensional form, virtual form at the time. We try to find a solution and then coordinate and work out with other consultants. So everything else, the piping, the wiring, the rebars, reinforcement, so all those other pieces of the building, looks kind of insides, right? Like they work. Imagine doing vice versa, right? First, taking based on the data of the project input, you actually design everything, almost everything but architecture, which is all those insides and services and structure and whatnot. Of course, structure is also quite interesting because architects still probably would need to create some feasibility studies and have maybe a general massing, right? That then allows structural engineers to respond to it, because otherwise, structural engineer would create a form. Like you get all those inputs, and then kind of, okay, it's going to work, right? Based on number of users of that building, based on the program, based on, ESD, many things, right? This is supposed to work. Let's say, 80% of coordination done. And then architect comes in and seeing, okay, so now I need to design beautiful interior spaces. I need to design a beautiful skin, the facades of the building. Okay, so, but I know if I kind of respect the certain constraints also driven now by services and structure, so in certain way, this might be more efficient approach, and definitely interesting one. I would like to take part in. But yeah, I mean, it's so many places around the world. This process, it's probably almost too early, but it's worth exploring, right? And maybe that's going to be the way we design things in 20, 30 years. Who knows? Maybe that's going to be a standard, and this conversation will be just one of the chronicles. But
yeah, it's a very hotly debated topic, right? The role of architect is going to change in the next 5 to 10 years, maybe even in 20 years. And there's two schools of thought. I mean, from what I've been talking to a lot of like architects like yourself, and also through the podcast episodes, right? Their views are also quite varied. Some of them feel that there's going to be a diversification of the role of architect. So it means like it's broken up to many different facets, like a facade designer, like a computational designer. It's very, very broken up. And the architect is just there to, coordinate, to be the grand orchestra guy, conducting the performance, making sure that everybody does their work on time and, on the same page, aligned into the same goal and vision. and making sure that the design meets the brief, right? And
Yeah.
the other way is like, it's gonna be, some people think it's like a crisis, right? It's gonna be, are we gonna reclaim all of these roles, and be a master of none, but maybe
Yeah.
good knowing different parts of the job, but may
Yeah.
not be the master of everything. He has to be
Yeah.
familiar
Yeah.
with all the different aspects. So that is the two
Again,
the two sides. Yeah.
I think no, I think you're right, and I think well, first of all, I always love this a metaphor of an orchestra, right? But at the end, the architect is still a composer, right? He writes the lyrics, and he has a vision of what this music should be, and everyone at the orchestra just helps him to achieve that and wow the audience. So this certain vision and design ideas should still be, that's architect's job, and maybe it's gonna be help. He will get a help from AI generated, images and all of that. Who knows? But that's the one job of an architect. But at the end of the day, I think it's about the scale of the project. With a single family house, I think an architect can still be, a one guy orchestra. But yes, like for the buildings with 7,500,000 square meters and just those scales and complexities, public buildings. Yes, I mean there's so much speciality and skill that you need for every single piece of that project that it's never one guy dream. You need actually, I think the teams that you have a many creative and great people and their minds align for this one goal. I think that's where the magic happens, and it's always a collaboration and teamwork, right? And as a matter of fact, many projects for 200, 300, 500 million dollars or more, it's 6-8 years time, right? Like of or more as well. Sometimes, unfortunately, town planning keeps coming back and so on and so forth. If these projects are precedents, but with 6-8 years, typically people, big teams, they keep changing. Right, it's a very long time. Look, I'm talking about almost a decade. Let's imagine one project, 10 years. That will be one project, let's say, right? Somebody works since graduating. That's remarkably long time, and people change, right? People, like teams, they keep changing. I remember, I think at Wait Smart, there was this VRC building and a gallery, the kind of exposition about this project, and there was a tremendous number of people, whether they spent 40 hours on it or 10,000 hours on it, but there was a tremendous number of people that took part in shaping that award-winning building, for instance, right? So it's all about collaboration, and I don't think architects should just worry about losing certain power, because it's all about adaptation and embracing the new things and maybe just utilizing it for his her benefit, right? So I don't worry about the future. I think we're going into a better place, at least from,
I think we are going to adapt as architects. Yeah, I'm going to adapt. My own personal opinion of this is that we are going to adapt, right? We're going to know everything, try our best to learn everything as far as possible.
Yeah.
I mean, there are always going to be specialist knowledge that we are not familiar, and then we ask, we humble ourselves and ask, right? What is this about? How can this inform the design or something? Maybe how can this solve the problem? And we can get this information, and we can actually internalize and synthesize a solution. That skill itself is not lost, and it's very valuable for architects. And I think that was actually ingrained through school. Like how we question the brief, we question things, we learn ourselves, we do our own research, and that is how we will always practice architecture. Right? It's not about like, for example, like in previous times we do project management, right? And I think some of the architects, I think old school architects, right? They literally lamented the fact that we architects lose that part of that scope of work, and then they're not in control of the project anymore. But some architects actually prefer not be in charge of the project and maybe focusing on things that are more important, right?
Yeah.
So there's always these
yeah.
schools of thoughts that we can actually juggle, and also there's not one clear path to be an architect. There's many different ways you can practice, and I guess
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
what we can only do is to encourage innovation and also encourage like adaptability for architects.
Yeah, and if I can add something, if there's anyone from the audience who's maybe more a student or in a junior role, that there are a few exams like a registration exam that
Yes.
you should actually know what you're talking about, and you speak from your knowledge, and it's you against the exam or the examiners. But it's always better to say I don't know than say something wrong, right? And make a mistake. And I think that kind of also in my daily work, it takes away a bit of pressure or fear in my case, because look, there's actually quite a few people, and it's humbling to get so many people actually ask me a question, and so I can help them maybe answer from what I know. But I also I always know, okay, if there's something I don't know, there's internal team, there are people, the other people at the company, there's a consultant team, there's so many people to ask question and to work together towards the solution, plus the wealth of knowledge on the internet and the books, right? Like it's about knowing what kind of question you need to ask and knowing where to search, and not knowing the answer at the moment is not a problem anymore, right? Maybe 50 years ago without the internet, but not anymore.
Yep. So we live in a world of information, and I think that is the advantage that we have over the old school architects. So we have to take that to our advantage, and also to learn as fast as possible, because it's going to change for sure.
Yeah.
All right. Speaking of changes, all right. So maybe I don't change topics into your platform.
Yes,
So what is it about? Who is it for? Why do you need it?
Okay. Well, this is a platform about architecture, and it's with the content provided by users. Okay, and it's for designers who want to put their work out there, and for clients searching for designers. So yes, it is a discovery platform. It is a platform to get certain information in our architectural, interior, landscape architecture, and all those kind of built environment industries. Discover the right projects, the right people, something that matches your criteria. And how to do that, right? Because we did a research, and there's many platforms out there, some of them worse, some of them better, but none of them really provides a solution to find a specific information about projects and designers. Typically it's just 2 or 3 filters, it's 2 or 3 metadata, even something that needs to be managed by maybe a central kind of, or a platform itself, right? So we thought, okay, what could we do better, right? What we could do something that can basically answer the questions of the times we live in, of 2022 now. So we thought about a system where, okay, well, first of all, we solved the problem of creating your portfolio, because it's costly or time consuming typically, right? Typically it's to keep your project's portfolio up to date is something, it's a hustle, right? Most of people don't think about it as something nice, quick, easy, a pleasure, but rather a chore, something, oh my god, I'm gonna spend a lot of time, or I need money, I know, Adobe licenses or something. So okay, let's solve that problem. Let's get people to create their design portfolio easily, quickly, very, very kind of cost efficiently. But at the same time, while you create this portfolio, you can actually do it in a framework that TuneArch provides. Very simple. It's like filling forms basically, but that you create a quality data and content, right? And now with this quality data and content and everything controlled by the users themselves, you can get the tools for searching, filtering, sorting, getting the specific information about projects and designers in a way that nobody else can do. None of the big names, none of the small names, and we can obviously even, and we're happy to get more feedback from the users, and we keep actually interviewing the users and getting more feedback and keep still shaping, because it's an early days platform, so we still keep improving, and we answer the comments of the users, of the first users. And we can quickly, shape and scale and keep adding those criteria that people just find most important. And that's what we focus on, helping the clients find designers through the contents of their work. That's it.
It's pretty interesting how, why do you start this? Was it anything that you wanted to solve, or is it your own personal experience trying out, or is it someone who told you about this pain point that you wanted to solve?
Okay, in terms of solving, it's sort of personal experiences and frustrations and observations that I had. I worked across different continents, countries, as we mentioned earlier, and I noticed that all the design communities have the same problems and frustrations everywhere, right? So we really are a global village in that regard. Whether we're talking about a small city in Europe, a big city in Asia, Singapore, Melbourne, we probably go through the similar problems, right? Because we all use similar softwares and platforms and the global names, the global companies, they create those kind of global high standards and everything. In that case, I think we're in a global village. And I know people are flying less nowadays, but we still technologically, and in terms of how you sometimes search for new opportunities, create your brand online or create your portfolio, it's the same story all over the world. And so that was quite an eye-opener, right? So it's not really a geographic problem that different designers or architects have different problems. It's the same. You need to create a portfolio. You want to get more opportunities, whether as a studio, you want to get more clients. As a professional, you want to get opportunity to get maybe a better job, get to the company that you dream working at, and especially if you want to do it passively, right? Imagine, because now most of those job boards and job advertising, it works in a way that the company wants to get another employee, another designer to join their team. They say, yeah, we have a vacancy, who wants to join? So they do it in a passive way. Okay, we have an offer, who wants to come? And all this work is again done by designers, right? Who seek these opportunities, they apply for that and so on. So now imagine if you flip the model and you let the companies actually find specific designers by the contents of their work. So you want someone to join your team. So now you think, okay, who shares our values? Right? Who has a similar design language, speaks the similar design language, or actually has a similar experience, or has experience we search for, right? And nothing can speak more for your work than your projects, right? If that's not the case, then it's probably not believable, right? Or that's not the true story. So let your project speak for you, right? Like, create a portfolio with key information, with the values, with everything important behind them, and let the companies search for the things they're interested at. And if you are the answer, they can contact you, right? So it could work that way. And also we eliminate selection bias, because finally, instead of looking for a person that might have projects that are okay for you as a studio owner, and now you look for projects, and if the projects tick the boxes, that are important to you. Let's see who's behind it, right? So it's much less of a selection bias and any kind of bias involved. Of course, look, TuneArc is not the platform that still, and it's a problem of what's the qualitative evaluation, right? This is, nobody cracked that code. What's the value of architecture, and what's the recipe for beauty? I mean, maybe the ancient Greek architects and some biomimicry designers, like generally trying to decode the nature and the beauty of nature and certain ratios and proportions, right? Like this is a rich source of information of what is beauty, but otherwise nobody cracked the code. So what we focus on is this more quantitative factual data. Right. So what's the site, total area of the project, volume, number of car spaces, materials, context, climate, budget, location, all phases and all of that factual stuff, right? And it's interesting because also instead of only speaking about sustainability, speaking about environmental strategies, you can actually list specific strategies and solutions, sustainability that you implemented in a project. And there you go, right? Like you have actually something specifics. It's not just, hey, we were in. Also, like if you find the project is just inspired by nature, but doesn't really follow certain rules and thermal acoustic insulation qualities and certain solutions, well then the project is not sustainable, right? So all those things, which is a technological impact, social impact, and environmental impact. These were the approaches we wanted to tackle, to address with TuneArc, and therefore these are the three criteria we wanted to solve with this idea.
Yeah, so I'll be sure to link the platform URL in the show notes, not to worry.
Thank you.
And I also believe in the vision of like just making it more accessible, making it easier for employers to actually get the right the talent to their firm based on certain taglines or certain projects that can be easily searched for. Yeah, so I fully believe in the vision, and I look forward to see it grow and to be more adopted by many young graduates and designers.
Yeah, and I think that's also how we really want to start. I think students who also, they worked on many projects and these projects, there's certain data behind them. There's so much work and effort done, right? It would be such a waste to just keep it as a PDF on some hard drive, maybe get an internship or some first job with that, instead of just, sharing it with the global community and just, again, probably passively getting some clients or headhunters contact you, but also community, right? Because it's also about the design research that you can't do a design research on Pinterest or Google anymore. Because, speaking of thousands and gazillion of data, unorganized, right? It's impossible to do an accurate and quick research. So solving a problem of a design research and again, imagine finding a house that's exactly between 1.9 and 2.2 million dollars with 200 square meters and semi-detached roof, or those kind of qualities, like being able to just input all these criteria, click and filter, and save a lot of time, and we're dealing with something super accurate, because either it really answers these questions or not. There is nothing, a little bit more or less. I think that's a superpower, right? And that's what we really focus on. So again, it's not about the final answer and tell you who's the right designer for you if you're a client, or who's the right designer if you want to hire someone. But if there is 100,000 of them, and you can filter out and get to 10 potential candidates in a matter of seconds, minutes, that's, I think you just first of all get yourself in a situation that you're going to have a well-informed decision if you proceed. You are unbiased, right? And finally, you save so much time. I think these are really interesting values, like that somebody can get.
Yep. So it's gonna be interesting to see how this develops, and yeah, looking forward to it, to see it grow.
Yeah, I look forward to, students, juniors, seniors, studios. It's just so inclusive. Also, in comparison to a lot of competitors and some competitive similar platforms that only focus on this kind of top end and let's say architects, right, or registered architects. Obviously, on TuneArch you can filter registered, non-registered architects, in the first place. So,
but it's more like a global platform, right? It's global and it's accessible.
But how to make it more inclusive? How to invite everyone and make it global? Because joint ventures, also collaborations, right? There's no platform that lets you as a international designer who maybe found a client or is designing something in other country with other standards, with other building code and laws, right? Find this kind of collaborative, like-minded company that you could do a joint venture with, right? So that's yet another angle that it's not just another problem we solve. It's just it's the same recipe, just making your project portfolio data-driven and informative, but that's yet again a potential outcome, positive outcome that you get. You just stimulate more international collaborations, which is very interesting. I think that there's currently so many amazing projects globally that happen through these international collaborations. And you have two studios or groups of designers or two designers that can learn from one another, which is another fascinating.
Yep, so we're going to conclude the podcast a little bit now, but before that, I usually ask this question to all my guests, like any advice to young designers that's just starting out?
Advice to young designers? I probably would say... explore as many things as you possibly can early in your career, right? Try to get as many experiences as you can. Internships, do international competitions, work by yourself, work with your friends, and test different types and different skills, courses, read books, just kind of be super open-minded, but then just make a decision to kind of go this one direction, go something specific. Because I think there's a benefit to specialize and to really be in a position to make this decision, right? Because if you're undecided for the next 10, 15 years, that you don't know what kind of architect you want to be, you don't know what kind of projects you want to work on, it's probably gonna waste you a lot of time and opportunities. So it's in a way, people think in their life, right, that I'm joining elementary school, and then I'm working myself up to those kind of university and exams, and actually up to high school or college or wherever you actually decide which specialty you take. Or I want to become an architect, or I want to become an artist or salesman. So that's going to be the last important decision, right? But I explored so many different subjects at school, and I was not interested in chemistry or biology. Okay, so I will go that way, and you make this final decision. But hey, this is just one step. You're probably halfway, because now in this area, especially architecture, is such a broad thing. Like Gabriel mentioned a few times, there's so many different paths in architecture. It's unbelievable. But again, making this decision and taking the path firmly can lead you to some amazing opportunities, right? Like some really interesting career, And yeah, I guess that's my
yeah, it's really good advice. So for those listening, especially if you're a fresh graduate, right, don't be afraid to explore unventured paths, because now is the right time. There's a lot of different new technologies, new ways of practicing architecture, and there's still many ways to explore, and you don't need to do the conventional path anymore. And I'm just highly encouraged to seek your own path and to just own it. All right, thank you, Jacek, for the time. It was a great pleasure.
It's 1 hour.
Yes, exactly.
It was a wow. I mean, I guess I like talking, so yeah, I was probably talking.
Yep.
But it felt to me like 5 minutes.
So, yeah, I'm sure we'll chat soon next time.
Great interview.
All right, thank you so much for your time.
Nice questions. Thank you, Gabriel, and continue. Also, you have this really great ARCHLOGBOOK, and your podcasts are really great. I think source of inspiration and information. And keep doing what you're doing. You're doing a great job, and thanks for that on behalf of design community.
All right, thank you so much. Take care.
Thank you, Gabriel. Have a good night.
Bye.
See you.